Underground. 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 Underground.
Greetings, surface dwellers. My name is Michael, and these are my chthonic musings. Today I am going to be talking about Dragonbane again, the game from Free League, and specifically about abilities and spells. This is the character sheet from Dragonbane, the color version, and we talked about attributes and skills, and if attributes and skills are the meat and potatoes of Dragonbane, abilities and spells are the spice. So let's get right to it. Abilities and spells. First note up front, I will be covering an overview only. Our interest here is in using these abilities and or spells during play, not how your character acquired that ability or spell through character generation or character development. Both of those will be covered later. There are two sources of abilities. The first is based on your choice of kin. These are called innate abilities and are unique to that kin. Each kin has at least one innate ability, and in the core Dragonbane rules, mallards have two. Heroic abilities are acquired through either your choice of profession or through character development / advancement. Each of the 10 professions, except mage, gives one heroic ability. Mages have spells instead. There is an optional rule. With GM approval, a player may substitute the standard heroic ability granted by their profession with another heroic ability. There is an example of this in the pre-generated characters in the core set. Orla Moonsilver, the Elven Hunter, has the heroic ability Twin Shot rather than the heroic ability Companion listed for the Hunter profession. In discussing abilities, I'm going to dare to venture into a little bit of opinion territory and go beyond the text of what's in the actual rulebook. And I'll lay out my thesis, and then we'll go over some samples, abilities, and then you can decide for yourself. I think the best way to think of abilities is to break it down to a few components, which I'll divide into 5 categories. Requirement. This is really only applicable for heroic abilities that are gained through play, through character development, and are not applied during character creation. But it is a component, so for sake of completeness, we'll cover it here. Conditions. These are under what conditions can you use this ability? And this is typically laid out in the text of the ability. But it's important to be very clear of when, this is right after you've been hit and you're thinking about dodging, well, maybe you can boost that a little bit. Or at some point in combat, you can, buff your allies with the musician ability or something like that. So we'll go over that. But the conditions that the ability can be used. The costs. So if you decide to invoke this ability, what are the costs? Now, most of the abilities have a willpower point cost associated with them. And so that'll be part of the cost. You spend the willpower. But there are potentially other costs. Sometimes you have to take a condition maybe a specific condition. You know, this ability, you become angry. Like I'm looking at you, mallards, you know, or berserkers. So there might be some other costs involved as well. And that might be not broken out for you, but in the text. So it's important to read the text of the ability and identify all the costs. And then the converse of that, what are the benefits? What are you going to get out of paying those costs, if any? Well, there's always costs. But what are you going to get out of those costs to receive these benefits? And are they worth it? That's for you to decide, but it's important to lay out, to be aware when you're reading through your abilities, what you're getting out of it. And then a catch-all category, other. There are sometimes some abilities have other things to consider that are not one of the above categories. So let's go over some examples. All right, we'll start off with a very straightforward example, and that is hard to catch, which is the innate ability for halflings. Reading the ability right out of the book next to the halfling, it says willpower points 3. You can activate this ability when dodging an attack, getting a boon to the evade roll. Pretty straightforward. So breaking it down into our categories, the requirement is that you're a halfling, which is kind of a tautology because if you weren't a halfling, you wouldn't have this feat. You'd have whatever feat was applicable to the kin that you were. So we can move beyond that. And the condition. Well, the condition is pretty straightforward here. It's when you're dodging an attack. To be specific, this means that your attacker has rolled and, quote unquote, hit you. So you're trying to decide whether you're going to avoid that or not, or counter it, we should say. All right, using the pre-gen character that comes with the core set, and I believe also with the free quick start PDF as well. Kursana the Bold, halfling thief. She has a skill value for evade of 14. So rolling a d20 to get a 14 or less, 70% chance. But she could decide, you know what, I'm going to spend those 3 willpower points, assuming she has them, and invoke my hard to catch ability, granting a boon to evade. So just to review again, boons, that means she'll roll 2 d20s, and if either one of them are 14 or less, she will succeed and avoid that attack. And while we're on this example, just to reinforce, let's say she took the boon, paid the 3 willpower points, and still both rolled 2 d20s and both of them were higher than 14. She could possibly push that roll. Now, if she were to push it, she'd have to choose a condition. And let's pick scared, which is a bane to willpower, I should say. And then rolls again. Now, since she had a boon, she rolls with a boon on the pushing reroll. Rolls again, and this time succeeds. Now she takes the condition scared, because that spear that was coming at her, was only like a quarter of an inch from her face, but she dodged the attack, she evaded it, and did not take damage. For our next example, let's take the innate ability of elves, Inner Peace. If we read through the workings of this ability, it says willpower points, nothing. So there's no willpower point cost. And the description says, as an elf, you can meditate deeply during a stretch rest. You heal an additional D6 hit points and a D6 extra willpower points, and can recover from an additional condition. You are completely unresponsive during your meditation and cannot be awakened. All right, so a couple of things going through this. The requirement is that you're an elf, so that's straightforward enough. The condition. This ability can be invoked during a stretch rest, which we haven't covered, resting or units of time. So I'll just briefly say that a stretch is 15 minutes in duration. So a stretch rest is like a short rest. For the cost, now there's no willpower point cost, but there is a cost because you are unresponsive and cannot be awakened if you choose to invoke this inner peace during your stretch rest. Now I'll just insert a little bit of opinion here, and that is that in order for this to be meaningful, a meaningful decision for the players to make, there has to be a little bit of an element of pressing your luck. So it has to be the case that sometimes it would, maybe even most of the time, it is perfectly fine to invoke this ability and to get these additional benefits from it. But there should always be that little bit of uncertainty that things could go south, and maybe I would say even some telegraphing or foreshadowing of what places are safer or not more dangerous than others, to kind of assist the players in making that decision of whether they're going to invoke that cost. Because if something happens and a combat breaks out, or it doesn't even have to be necessarily a combat, there could be some other situation that the character might want to react to, but you're catatonic, so that's not going to happen. So that's what I would say. Make that cost be an impactful decision. Now, as far as the benefits, which are healing an extra D6 hit points, extra D6 willpower points, and recover from an additional condition, I'm not going to go fully into the resting, because there are some, for a stretch rest, there's a little bit more with if somebody's going to give you medical assistance during that rest, or if you're going to use your memento to recover from an additional condition as well. But the D6 hit points, D6 willpower points, and recover from a condition are the normal benefits of a stretch rest. So basically, by invoking this, your benefit is you're doubling the normal benefits of a stretch rest. For our next example, we're going to go with the heroic ability granted by the bard profession, and that is the musician ability. Now, I don't have a pre-generated bard character sheet, so we're going to highlight the lesser-known Dark Drake Mallory of the Melancholy Moors, cousin to the better-known Makander of Halfbay. Now, Mallory happens to have the same exact attributes and skills as Makander, his cousin. But instead of pursuing the ways of the knighthood, Mallory became a bard. And so instead of the guardian ability, he has the musician ability, which reads as follows. Musician. Requirement: Performance 12. Willpower points 3. Your beautiful voice instills courage in your friends or fear in your foes. Activating this ability, an action in combat, gives all allies within 10 meters a boon to all rolls, or a bane to all enemies within the same range. Choose one or the other. The effect lasts until your turn in the next round. Instruments. You can use instruments for the musician ability. This can increase the ability's range or reduce the cost in willpower points. Alright, so let's break this down. First of all, we have the requirement, Performance 12. Now this does not apply to character generation. It only applies to adding this heroic ability later on during play. Alright, next up, what conditions do we have? Well, it says that, in the description that part of this is singing. Also, later on below, we'll see that we have options to use instruments to augment it. So, as a game master, I would rule that you have to be able to physically do one of these things. So, if you were, let's say, gagged, your player couldn't sing or use any kind of wind instrument like a bagpipe, a horn, or a flute. Similarly, if your hands are bound, you may not be able to play a drum or a lyre or a harp. So those would certainly be conditions. The range, there's a default range of 10 meters, which is interesting. So conditionally, for your targets to be affected, either your allies or your enemies, they have to be within that range when you invoke this ability. But it wouldn't necessarily stop you from using it. It just, you have to consider who's going to be affected and who will be not eligible to be affected by it. And lastly, it lasts until your turn in the next round. So that's kind of a conditional, because once that ends, once your turn comes up in the next round, then the effects of this ability will be terminated. And just as a note, I had to look this up myself, because we haven't covered combat yet, but during combat, there are initiative cards to randomly determine the initiative of who goes when in a turn. So it's very dynamic. It changes from turn to turn. And there's an ability, not an action. There's an option, let's say, an option that you can take called wait, where if there's somebody else behind you in the initiative order, you can swap cards with them. So essentially, you move backwards in the initiative, acting later, and they move up to where your place in the initiative would have been. And I just looked up in the unofficial FAQ, that if you do this, if you decide to wait and move back in the initiative, your turn doesn't end. Your turn doesn't come around until your new place in the initiative. So you can actually use that to extend the time a little bit. The cost is pretty straightforward: 3 willpower points. For the benefit, you have an option. You can either grant boons to your allies within the range, or banes to all your enemies within the range. And once again, until your turn in the next round. And this is one of the abilities where we delve into the other category. with the instruments, because we have an ability that works, and we have all the definition to it, but we can modify that if we have the proper gear. So based on the instrument used, which is optional, you can reduce the willpower cost or increase the range, or both. For example, a harp would reduce the willpower point cost from 3 to 1. A drum would increase the range from 10 meters to 20 meters. Or the bagpipe, which is what Mallory uses, reduces the willpower point cost to 1 and increases the range to 50 meters. For our last ability example, we're going to return to Chrysanta the Bold, the halfling thief, and take a look at the ability provided by her profession of thief, and that is backstabbing. Backstabbing reads as follows. Requirement, knives, 12. Willpower points, 3. You can activate this ability when making a melee attack against an enemy that is also within 2 meters of another player character. Your attack then counts as a sneak attack, which means it cannot be dodged or parried. You get a boon to the roll, and the number of dice rolled for the damage is increased by 1. In other words, 2d8 instead of d8. This ability can only be used with a subtle weapon. Activating this ability does not count as an action. Alright, so breaking it down, we have the requirement, knives 12, which is only applicable for those people studying the art of backstabbing during play in their careers. Condition, we have a melee attack against an enemy using a subtle weapon, which pretty much means, unless I'm mistaken in the gear list, daggers and knives. We're talking about daggers and knives. And there has to be another PC within 2 meters of the target of your melee attack. If those conditions are met, you can invoke the cost, which is 3 willpower points, and turn that attack into a sneak attack. The benefits of it being a sneak attack is you get a boon on the attack. You get that extra die of damage if you connect, if you land the blow. And also the target can't dodge or parry, which is a big one, because a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but you could, in Dragonbane, strike and attack and land a blow, and then if your target hasn't gone yet in that round and still has an action, they can try to dodge or parry and kind of negate your attack. This prevents that, which is really nice. And the only other thing that I'll add to this example is that Dragonbane in combat has a very constricted action economy. You get one action, which includes defending or attacking. So if you parry before your turn and react to an enemy's attack, that's your action. You flip your card over and you're done until the next round. So it's kind of key for the players to to coordinate, be aware of the full situation of what's going on, and to try to assist each other if they can, and try to really work as a team. So with regard to the backstabbing ability, if your turn comes up and you're all ready to go, except you don't meet that condition of having the flanking attack, because you don't have another player character within 2 meters of this enemy. Going back to that wait option, you could then decide, well, I'm not going to take my action right now. I'm going to wait and swap with another player that's behind me in the initiative order, assuming that I'm assuming that there is one, and allow them to go, and so that they can maybe move up to this enemy, do their attack, and then when my turn comes around, I'm in that flanking position and can utilize this backstabbing attack. So, just a thought. And now we come to spells. I'm going to cover magic in much more depth in a future video. So right now, what I'm going to be covering is just the basics of how your mage or other character that has learned some magic invokes and casts those spells that you have. So we're going to go over a few topics, and then we'll wrap up with some suggestions that I have about how to note your spells on your character sheet, as well as keeping a copy of the descriptions of both your abilities and your spells nearby with your character sheet, so that you can refer to them without having to go to the rule book during play. All right, let's start with magic tricks. There's actually 2 different kinds of spells in Dragonbane. Magic tricks and prepared spells. And magic tricks are very minor magic. A beginning mage character will start with 3 magic tricks, as well as 3 prepared spells. The descriptions for the magic tricks are very short and straightforward. The magic tricks only require 1 willpower point to cast them, and a gesture, and they do not require a skill roll to cast. They just get cast. Now, in contrast, the prepared spells are a bit more involved. They do require a skill roll from the appropriate school of magic, or if you are casting what's called a general spell, then it can be cast using the skill roll of any school of magic. The descriptions of the prepared spells are a bit more robust than the magic tricks, and the write-ups will tell you if what the range of the spell is, what they also use the word requirements, but it's used in a different manner than abilities. But what the requirements are, so whether in addition to gestures, you also need to speak some words, or have a focus such as a wand or an orb in order to cast a spell. It's all written up in the spell. Prepared spells are cast at one of 3 power levels, which will affect some dynamics of the spell, and the write-up of each spell will tell you what that power level does. But in general, the higher the power level, the more powerful the effects of that spell. Each power level takes 2 willpower points. So a prepared spell cast at power level 1 takes 2 willpower points, power level 2, 4 willpower points, and power level 3 is 6 willpower points. Some spells do not use power level, and so these are always cast at power level 1 for 2 willpower points. If the skill roll for the spell fails, then the willpower points are still expended, but the spell does not take effect. If it's a demon roll that caused the failure and the optional magical mishaps rules are being used, then a magical mishap may happen. And finally, a note regarding magic and metal. From the rulebook, it says, metal has an anti-magical effect, which means that you cannot use magic if you are wearing metal armor or have a metal weapon at hand. This includes partially metal items such as axes, spears, studded leather, and arrows, but not staves, clubs, or slings. Items in your inventory do not count. And I'll just add a little something there to clarify, because it talks about arrows. But there actually are different kinds of arrows within the gear section. So you can have iron-tipped arrows, which is what this is that section was referring to. But you can also have just wooden-tipped arrows, which are not quite as effective against someone that is wearing armor, because the armor effect actually gets doubled against the wooden-tipped arrows. But they don't prevent you from casting spells and using your magic. And also to mention that the effect is immediate. So if your mage is holding a hand axe or has one at hand, they are not able to use magic. But if they drop the hand axe as a free action, or they take one action in combat and throw that axe, then they are no longer in contact with metal, and at that point going forward, they can utilize their magic. And also one last thing, it's not just the armor and weapons. Also a mage or anyone with the ability to cast magic that is put into manacles or fetters or anything made of metal, or they come into contact with a metal floor or something like that. As long as they're in contact with metal, they will be unable to cast their spells. And going back to prepared spells for just a moment, there is a maximum number of spells that you can hold prepared in your memory at the same time, and it's equal to your base chance for intelligence. Now, that when you start with a beginning mage, they only have 3 prepared spells, which means by definition they're not going to come at that point into this restriction, because even if your mage for some reason only had like a 3 intelligence, they still have a base chance of 3, so they could hold those 3 spells in their memory. And that goes up. If they have an intelligence of 6, they can hold 4 spells. 9, 5 spells. If you have an intelligence of 13, so now we're getting more in the range of what a mage should really have. Intelligence of 13, you can hold 6 spells, and 16 or more, you can hold 7 spells. So you need to build up your repertoire a little bit before you have to worry about not being able to hold your prepared spells in memory. But if you do come to that point and you've got more spells available to you in your grimoire, then you can store in your memory. Then you have to like decide, what you're going to, which ones you're going to prepare, and which ones you are not going to prepare. The spells that you do have prepared should be noted somewhere on your character sheet. So next to the spell, you could put a check mark to the ones that you have prepared, or some way of knowing which ones you have prepared, which ones you don't. Now, looking at the character sheet for the pre-generated sheet for Arcmaster Aeon, we could take a look at this, and it's got all. It's had his ability, adaptive, which is the innate ability for humans, and all of his magic tricks and spells listed out. And I'm going to make a suggestion. This is an opinion of mine, and that is that the magic tricks and spells should be noted. So that you can kind of keep track of what's what. I would suggest, prefacing your magic tricks with something that just says trick, and then the name of the magic trick, and then your prepared spells with a preface of spell, and then the prepared spells. And that way you can keep track better of which of these are tricks and only cost 1 willpower point and no skill roll is involved, and which ones are a little bit more involved, the prepared spells, and which the ones that you have to mark if you've got more prepared spells than you can keep in memory at one time. And then finally, just reiterating what I said before, I really believe it's beneficial to keep a full accounting, a full description of each of your abilities and spells if you have spells, with your character sheet. So either you could use index cards or some other card system, or just photocopies of the abilities and the spells in question, or keeping a journal, whatever works for you. But that way you can reference it, you can become familiar, and it's really not that complicated in Dragonbane, the spells and the abilities. But keep something that you can reference, and you don't have to go to the rule book during play. So not to disrupt during actual play. Excellent. So between this video about abilities and spells and my prior video, Musing number 2, about attributes and skills, like I said in my prior video, I think that's about 95% of the way of getting there to be able to play the game, at least. So I think in a pinch you could actually do it and fill in the corners of other things, as they come up during the game, and without too much disruption. So there we go. I'm going to take a little break from the Dragonbane and cover a different topic, a more general topic, about tables, random tables, and a few options to random tables, and then I'll probably return back to Dragonbane after that. So until I resurface, may your successes be many and your failures be memorable.